Greetings, nerds and virgins. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the BadMotoGP-Show. We are now at episode 44, and we are reviewing the Mandalika Grand Prix. And just some quick heads up now. As you see, different background. I'm in my new flat in Berlin. And if you hear anything from the outside, like a train or like an emergency vehicle, how do you call those?
Ambulances?
Yeah, an ambulance. That's right, I'm stupid. I'm sorry, and it's just a big city. Shit happens. People die all the time here. And yeah, so looking to mute myself as much as possible when I hear something and I'm not talking. And it's Keelin's turn to enlighten you with his knowledge. So yeah, back to MotoGP and MotoGP topics. We had a very, very crazy race, and I think it was one of the craziest races, definitely since Le Mans, because Le Mans was absolutely crazy as well. And I would like to talk to you about Pecco and Jorge Martin first, because it's the championship. That's the big thing. What happened? And my first. Oh, before we start, Keelan, hello. How are you? Did you enjoy the races?
Greetings, fellow nerds and virgins. Following on from Leo's line there. No, hello, everybody. Welcome back, of course, to the Bad MotoGP podcast. We're coming to you, of course, in the aftermath of the Indian Ocean, Mandalika, Indonesian Grand Prix. And like Leo said, one of the craziest races of the season so far. We had crashes, we had spills, we had crazy overtakes, we had dramatic changes at the top of the championship. And yeah, I had a great time all weekend. Didn't enjoy getting up again. God damn you, far side of the world. I wish I was a flat earther like Bryce Mitchell. But yeah, really great weekend. Really enjoyed everything that went on, and looking forward to getting straight into it.
Yes, and I would like to kind of pick up where we left in India, because in India, when Pecco crashed, we had this whole discussion about why he's crashing all the time. And basically, my point back then was if he's under pressure, he is so good. But when he is in a situation where he's maybe not as concentrated because everything settles like for a second, then he starts to crash, like in Argentina, like in India, like um, in America. And now we saw Pecco at his absolute best, and this kind of confirms my opinion there, because he had to have a good race. He couldn't afford, he was starting from like P13, he couldn't afford to lose anything more on Jorge Martin because the momentum really was starting to shift. And when we go back to what we talked about in Catalonia, that it was now Jorge Martin's time to make up on Pecco, he did it better than I could have ever envisioned doing that. But yeah, it was very, very much the pressure on Pecco, and it was now in a situation where he was the hunter and not the one who is hunted. And he managed it brilliantly, had a brilliant first lap. He got lucky with Jorge Martin's crash there. But at the end of the day, I think it was more due to the fact that Jorge Martin was so incredibly fast and had the soft tire, and it was so hot, and everybody was struggling on the tires. So I think that it was due to this fact, but we will cover this later. And yeah, Pecco had just a very, very good tire management, very good first lap, very good start, and also a good sense of urgency where you're like, I have to win this race, especially after Jorge Martin crashed. He wouldn't have caught him except Jorge Martin's tires completely dropped. But it was such a crazy race, and the comparison to Malaysia is very, very great. Like Malaysia last year, Jorge Martin crashed in the lead there as well. And all the pressure was on Pecco. He had a bad qualifying, but had a good first lap, good start. And he basically had to win this race for like different reasons. Last year, it was more like to seal the championship, more or less, for Valencia. And this year was to not let Jorge Martin get away with an even bigger point advantage. And he is so incredibly good when he's under pressure, when all the stakes are on the table, when everybody went all in, then Pecco is at his best. He's still fucking stupid if he's in his comfort zone, but as soon as you get this motherfucker out of the comfort zone, you are in for a long race because he is so great and he makes no mistakes when he's under pressure and can't afford any mistakes. When he has a 60-point gap, he will throw this shit away, and like 5 times a season he crashes apparently.
Mm.
But yeah, when the stakes are high and the pressure's on him, Pecco is so incredibly good.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's obviously a lot of stuff to break down here, so I'll kind of just take it straight from the beginning. Jorge Martin's launch off the line, did you see that? That was like the best launch I think I've ever seen any rider have. He just shot past everybody else into the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
corner. That was
To quick,
outrageous.
quickly interrupt you there,
Hmm.
if the MotoGP graphics are 100% correct and the speed is correct, he was accelerating like in 2.4 seconds from 0 to 100 and was like in 4.5 seconds from 0 to 200. It was crazy fast. I mean, I stopped the video there, and then like on the iPhone you
Uh-huh.
can see like the seconds on into the second digit
Yeah.
after. So yeah, and I was so curious how fast those things are. If this graphic is correct, you have to really think about it. 2.4 seconds from 0 to 100, 4.5 to 200. Crazy. Yeah, please go on. I'm sorry, I just wanted to spill the facts.
No, it's a great point to make. I'm actually glad you brought that up. Like I was, of course, watching the race this morning, like you were live, and I swear to God, I'm not being over dramatic here. I blinked and Jorge Martin was in front. And I thought, I was actually watching the race and I thought, is that Jorge Martin in front? How has he done this? And I saw the replay, obviously, as they went into like turn 5, turn 6, and Jorge Martin's launch. Oh my goodness. That was like, it's got to be the best launch I've ever seen. It was timed to perfection. And like you said there a second ago, 2.4 seconds from 0 to 100. Think about that power and that speed. It's absolutely superhuman. And then getting into everything else, Pecco Bagnaia had a brilliant first 2 laps, as we said he had to have. I was worried for him that he would get caught up in the mix starting in P13, because obviously if you're in the middle of the pack, it's so easy to get wiped out in the first 2 turns, but he navigated that really, really well. And I think by the beginning of the second lap, he'd made up something like 8 or 9 places already. So Pecco Bagnaia knew, like you said, that he had to have a good race today and that he couldn't leave anything out there. And he left he couldn't leave anything in the tank, and he left everything out there as he knew he had to. And he had a brilliant, brilliant race. I was genuinely impressed with how great Pecco Bagnaia was today. And yeah, I didn't see it coming. I really, really didn't. But what a lot of people forget is, and even though I was never the biggest Jorge Lorenzo fan, what we have to acknowledge is that it takes so much skill, based off of what you were saying at the beginning of the episode. It takes so much skill to lead a race and to not have that pressure immediately behind you, and to be able to deal with the 3, 4, 5 second gap without letting up and without switching off. And that's why Jorge Lorenzo won as many world championships as he did, because he was the very best at doing that. And we criticized Pecco
And
Bagnaia for
because
this,
of
for
Mark
not being
Marquez.
able. Sorry?
And because of Mark Marquez.
And also because of Marc Marquez, but we don't talk about that, except I do talk about that because I obviously love Valentino. But yeah, also because of Marc Marquez. But what we criticized Pecco for was not being able to manage that. And the second the pressure went off, he went off and he crashed. And now that's happened to Jorge Martin too, which is really weird, because 3 second gap, even if he'd have stayed on the track, I don't think Pecco would have touched him, just because Jorge Martin has that pace. But like you said, has that gap, falls off, and doesn't understand what's happened. But that is what happens when the pressure relents for a second and you stop thinking for a split moment. Those kind of things can happen. And now Jorge Martin has probably thrown away 25 very, very valuable points in this championship race. Pecco, on the other hand, did what Pecco had to do. He picked up the pieces, kept Maverick Vinales and Fabio Quartararo at bay, and now this title race is very well and truly back on again.
The thing is, I'm not entirely convinced that Jorge Martin crashed because he wasn't concentrated or he anything else but his tire. I mean, his front soft tire took a beating, and we will talk about this later with Aleix, and he had a soft rear tire. I mean, absolutely crazy those conditions in Indonesia. And this is the thing you have to take into consideration. I mean, it could be very well that Jorge Martin made everything perfect and the tire just gave out. Because did you see those pictures from the tires in Moto 2 where there were
Ooh.
literally holes in it? I mean, the conditions were very, very tricky. And in India, you saw Pecco crashing because he was offline, he was too fast into a corner, and it was like a lack of concentration. With Jorge Martin, we didn't necessarily see the best camera angle on the shot, so we don't know, or at least I don't know, maybe there's something out now,
Mhm.
but all I've seen was the onboard. It could have been that he was a little bit off track. We saw this in the sprint race with Aleix when you're on this track a little bit off the line. Then it's so dirty there that you could very, very easily crash there. But I still believe it was a combination out of Jorge Martin's pace because he was so fast and the soft tire, who obviously is very, very difficult to manage over this whole race distance. At the end of the day, we don't know if he didn't crash, if he even would have won because it's such a long race and there is so much happening there. And on the other hand, it's so important for the championship because let's pretend he would have went on and won this race. It's not 25 points he threw away, it was 30 points because if Pecco didn't win and was finishing second, he would have made up 30 more points than it's now. Like you gifted 25 points to Pecco, but also due to the 5 point difference,
Ah,
you
yeah.
not only lost 25 points, you lost, in fact, 30 points. Like, if Jorge Martin won this race, the championship would have looked a lot different. And honestly, that's also a part which is oftentimes neglected. You have to choose the right tires for the race. We will talk about this with Aleix in a second, but it's part of the game. It's part of being a good, experienced rider. And Jorge Martin chose the soft and Pecco chose the hard one. Pecco at the end of the race said the hard one helped him to brake later and be more aggressive. So maybe I haven't heard an interview with Jorge Martin yet. Maybe there's one out. Maybe he refuses to talk to the media because he would have pulled a Jake Dixon on Michelin. But yeah, I mean, it's so complex, and I don't necessarily think it was Jorge Martin's mistake why he crashed, but I think it was his mistake to put the soft front tire in, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I have to say when they were lining up on the grid before they obviously did the warm up lap, I did think that the choice for a soft front tire was really really strange, and I actually had to check myself, and I thought, why is Jorge Martin putting in a soft front? It's like 60, 70 degrees out there. Why are you putting in a soft tire? I did think that was a very strange choice from the beginning, and that very well could have been the reason why he ultimately ended up crashing because, like you said, in all classes, those tires were chewed up badly today, obviously because of the track being so hot. And I think Pecco and his garage pulled a masterstroke by going for the hard tires, obviously, because they knew that not only is it very hot out there, but it's a very long race too. So the tires are going to be under so much torture and tension for so long on that track. So I think, like you said, it's a great point to make. Being able to match the tires to the conditions is a big, big part of being able to win a race or if you lose a race. And Pecco pulled a masterstroke today, and Jorge Martin's decision bit him in the behind, unfortunately.
I just looked it up. Fabio was running the soft front too, and he afterwards said that it was on the limit a lot of times.
Mm,
And Fabio Di Giannantonio ran the soft front as well. And I don't think that there was a problem of bringing the soft front over the distance because both Fabios did it. But to do it with this pace is utterly difficult.
And that
And
riding style too.
yeah, I mean, Jorge Martin isn't necessarily known for crashing like Pecco is, for example,
Mm.
or like Marcus. He rarely crashes, and he kind of fixed this one. This was an early issue for him, like early in his MotoGP career, but now it looks like he more or less fixed it. So I think this very well could be just come down to the tire and his pace. So he should have probably went with the heart. Like in hindsight, you're always smarter, but yeah, very tough decision. And like Aleix, he put in the soft rear tire against the advice from Michelin. Michelin said, "Don't do this," and Aleix basically said, "Fuck you, don't tell me what to do." And he finished behind Alex Rins. So I mean, it's difficult to compare a front tire to a rear tire because the conditions are those tires are in are so different. But it's still a sign. Like if the soft front is on the limit and you crash, or like people like those two Fabios have to have a significantly slower pace to bring it over the distance. And then have somebody like Aleix with a soft rear tire falling back so dramatically. It's a sign, and I hope Jorge Martin will learn from this. I don't necessarily think it was his riding mistake. It was more like his pre-race mistake to put in the wrong tire. And yeah, I mean, which brings us a little bit to Maverick and Fabio. And Maverick had a very good race, but at the end of the day, turned into Aaron Canet again, like he did in Catalonia, like he did in many different races where he had the chance to win, but at the end of the day, finished second. And Fabio was very strong, but he has a big problem overtaking. He overtook one guy during this whole race, and this was Aleix Espargaro. And we already mentioned how slow Aleix was because of his tire choice. So I think Yamaha really needs to provide him with a good bike. And when Fabio is capable of qualifying good and qualifying on the front two rows and maybe has the ability to overtake, then the Yamaha is still a good bike. It doesn't have to be a Ducati, but it should be able to qualify a lot better, and he should be able to overtake. So this is like the two big weak points of the Yamaha. But Fabio did everything he could, and it was a little bit sad to see he closed like a 3 or 3.5 second gap onto Maverick and
Mm.
Pecco, but then was stuck there. So he had a very good race in one sense, but I understand his frustration because he really should have at least fought for the victory. But he was stuck there in third position. He couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I when I was watching the race and obviously coming towards the latter stages of it, I was losing my mind for Fabio. I was thinking, okay, overtake him now, final sector, overtake him now. So you can only imagine how frustrated Fabio is if that's how we feel. No, he doesn't want to be stuck behind Maverick Vinales or Pecco. He wants to be able to overtake them at any given opportunity. And, from realistically, from last season to this point now, we've been talking about this for nearly 2 years with Yamaha. The bike cannot overtake. And that's what we saw today. And quite frankly, how Fabio is managing to pull podiums out on this bike is superhuman, quite frankly. And it's why I still maintain he is the best motorcycle racer on the planet. I stand by that pretty firmly. I think what he's able to do on that bike with no real good speed and no ability to overtake is quite frankly unbelievable. I mean, like I said, Vinales was kind of turning into Jack Miller and holding everybody up behind him, and Fabio just couldn't get past him. And I was sort of struggling with that because I know that Fabio is trying to get in the inside, get past him, and get to Pecco, but he's still doing great things. He's doing what Fabio does, and yeah, hopefully next year Yamaha do something, and if not, there's probably going to be an Aprilia available, so we'll see what happens.
I massively disagree with the Maverick Vinales point. I mean, yes, he was falling back a lot in the sprint, but during the race, he was doing a very good job and was able to at least put Pecco under pressure and not lose touch to the race lead. So I mean, there was a possibility in the last lap that Maverick maybe could have overtaken Pecco if he was a little bit closer, but it wasn't far off. And also, there's like a very big risk with overtaking on this track because we saw this with Brad Binder today. We saw it with Aleix yesterday on Brad Binder. You know, when you leave the racing line for an overtake, you have to be very, very careful because the track offers no grip and is so dirty off the racing line. So I don't know why is it in Indonesia that we have this problem. It was the same problem last year. Probably because there's no real racing there except MotoGP, but that's just an assumption. I don't know. And I think Fabio did very good and was wise in not overtaking Maverick because at the end of the day, it could have happened that he just crashed or wiped both of them out. And you know how the stewards feel about Fabio. But
Hmm.
Maverick was doing a good job and he was in a very, very good position overall. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily critique Maverick too much. And also with Fabio, it's difficult because if you have no rear grip slash no power, I think it's more rear grip issue than power issue, then overtaking is so difficult because you can't get close enough. And even if you are close and the other one is accelerating this a little bit too far away, like this little bit faster than you out of the corner, you just can't overtake, especially on a track like Mandalika. So I mean, very, very good race by Fabio, very good race by Maverick. I think with Maverick, the race win will come because there's usually 1 or 2 days in a year where Maverick is unbeatable. And if he fixes like those last issues on the Aprilia where he's losing towards the end of a race like he did in Catalonia or like he did again today, then he can absolutely win a race, and it would be astonishing if somebody wins on three different manufacturers because
Hmm.
it's never happened, you know. So those three guys at the top, they just did everything right, and also credit for Pecco. He is so good at leading a race and defending because when he's in front, usually you are not seeing anything. Else than his rear tire because he's so incredibly good at defending. And when he's under pressure, he's so good. That's like the frustrating part, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody should be good when there's no pressure in MotoGP, but like the pressure is what creates diamonds, you know, like they say. But
Hmm.
he's like the flip side, and it's so frustrating because he's such a great rider, and I would argue he's the best rider on the grid if he's under pressure. But if he's like in this state where okay now everything is fine, then he has a lack of concentration. And last year showed this perfectly because at the beginning of the season where there was no real championship implications in those races,
Hmm.
it was crashing left and right, you know. But as soon as the summer break went over and he had to win, then now it's the same. Like he has to win, and if he has to win, he's unbeatable. It's so crazy, and he has the perfect bike underneath him to do so. But yeah, but that's a different discussion. I would like to talk to you about Brad Binder because he's also a very bad example on why this track is so difficult to overtake.
Yeah, sorry, Lou, do you mind if I just step in one
Yeah,
second? Just before we get on to Brad Bender, apologies for the interruption. I just wanted to add to a point you made about Mandalika as a whole. I did mean to say this earlier. The TNT broadcast that I obviously get were actually talking about this, and they were basically backing up the point that you made about why, if you go off the racing line, it's so difficult to overtake. And they were saying that because there is no other racing other than MotoGP, because there's no F1 World Superbike, whatever else, basically every other part of the track is untouched, so there is no real safe area to overtake unless you're on the racing line. So just wanted to add that really quickly. You are right in your thinking there, and yep, back to where we were.
isn't World Superbike? Oh no, they aren't, but they used to race there, right?
Mm, I'm pretty sure they did, yeah.
They went there before MotoGP even did, if I
Yeah,
remember
I think they
correctly.
did.
But now they don't race there anymore. Like Jerez is now the last race of the season for World Superbike, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So thanks for making this point.
Yeah, of course.
Also, like to build on it with Brad Binder, he was, I mean, the first crash with Luca Marini was a little bit unlucky
Mm.
because it was like a very difficult situation when you are in MotoGP, everybody is good. Like everybody is on the top 0.001% of motorcycle riders in the world. And to overtake somebody is difficult in itself, you know? And what Simon Craver explained, you have to break this a little bit later than your competitor to overtake, but you're sacrificing in turning because you arrive at the apex faster. So usually when you see overtakes, it's like the classic switcheroo. You know, you go a little bit deep into the corner, and if you're good, you manage this line perfectly. But if you are just a little too late, you leave the door open, somebody else will counter and overtake you back. So Brad Bittner was in a situation where he had to break this a little bit later, and then Luca Marini was there, and it was a very difficult situation. And again, from such a class rider, you could expect to know this a little bit better, like to see, okay, this isn't the situation to overtake now. But then again, it's very, very difficult. It's such a fine margin. So I would classify this more as a racing incident from my side. But the thing with Miguel Oliveira, I mean, you can't have it happen twice in a race, and it's a very bad look to punt two people off track and out of the race. And yeah, that's just a very, very bad look. But on the flip side, when you consider this dude had two long laps, he did a very, very good job. He had an incredible race, and who knows what would have happened if he was able to overtake cleanly, you know? But yeah, today Brad turned a little bit into Darren, and I hope he will be Brad again the next race for the sake of everybody else. But yeah, very difficult. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts about if it was a racing incident or not, because obviously the stewards didn't thought so.
Yeah, as far as Brad Binder goes, obviously it's a bit of a complex situation. The first crash with Marini, I think that's fair because he was in a bit of a dead space and there's nowhere he really could have gone. So, excuse me. So I can kind of excuse that. That's kind of racing incident for me. That's kind of fair. The second crash is a lot harder to defend, in my opinion. I think that was much more just Brad's own recklessness rather than being caught in the dead space. I think he could have managed that a lot better. I think he could have pulled out. He could have let him go on by, but he didn't. And that for me is a penalty. So I think the stewards got that one right. Yeah, that's really where I stand on it. The first one with Marini, I think, is fair because, like I said, there's nowhere he really could have gone. He was sort of trapped. The second one, though, he could have influenced that and he chose not to. So for me, the second one is a penalty. I think they got that right.
Yeah, I mean, with the first penalty, I don't think it's a bad decision to penalize him,
Mm.
even though I wouldn't, you know, but I don't have a problem with the penalty.
It's not the
And
worst one we've seen by
yeah,
far.
definitely not the worst one. I mean, when you have Jerez as an gold standard for bad stewarding, then everybody else or every race was a good a good
Shout out the
decision.
chimp stewards.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, but I'm not too mad at the first penalty because at the end of the day, maybe you should have known better and not even started this overtake. But
Mm.
with Miguel Oliveira, I'm fully on your side. I mean, it was reckless, and you should be able to overtake somebody when there's no third party involved cleanly in MotoGP. That should be a basic requirement to
Y-
race there. But also,
yeah,
he damaged his wings in this overtake
that's
attempt with
right.
Miguel Oliveira, and like with both situations, he lost so much time. I'm not sure how much time the wing costed him, but Brad Binder was fast today. I mean, if he would have left the Darren part behind and just be Brad today, I think he even could have been on the podium. Who knows?
Yeah,
Just looking up, how far was he behind? Wait a second, I have an open here. Brad Binder was 11 seconds behind. Yeah, maybe not podium, but definitely could have challenged Fabio Di Giannantonio, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is funny with the eventful, let's put it that way, with the eventful race that Brad Binder had today, he still finished really, really well. He was involved in two crashes, a broken wing, and he still got a really good position out of it. So Brad Binder doing Brad Binder things as normal and channeling his brother Darren as well. Yeah, just a final note on the penalties before we move on. Like you said, and it is a good point, the first one, like I said, I wouldn't have given it as a penalty, but it's one of those penalties where you can at least understand the thinking behind it. I can see where they've made that decision and gone, okay, we're going this way. So whilst I wouldn't have given it, that doesn't mean that I hate the stewards for giving it. I can at least see the logic behind it. And then the second one they got spot on. So we're in actually a pretty good place with the chimp stewards today. So score one for them.
I mean, in general, I think it's a long time that they made like an outrageously stupid decision.
Yeah, it actually is when you think about
It,
it.
it feels weird. We haven't
It
ranted
does feel
about
weird.
yeah, we haven't ranted about the stewards for quite some time now. So yeah,
Watch them at the next race do something outrageous.
I mean, it can't get worse than what Race Direction did with Jorge Navarro last year in
Yeah.
Phillip Island. I mean, whoever was responsible for that should be in jail for attempted murder. I'm honest, ohne Scheiß. It is so utterly ridiculous what they did to Jorge Navarro. Everybody who didn't watch the Moto2 race last year, Jorge Navarro crashed, had a broken leg, like a broken femur,
hmm
and apparently internal bleeding, if I remember correctly. And
That's
he
right.
was lying there for 3 or 4 laps until he was carried off, and the race was going on. I mean, if somebody crashed there, he would have been dead. If there was like worse internal bleeding, like there's like a big artery running through your leg, I don't think it was opened from the bone. But if it was, he would have been bleeding to death. It was so there should have been an ambulance on track taking care of him. There should have been a helicopter on track taking care of him. It was utterly ridiculous, and I mean it when I say whoever was responsible there in race direction should be in jail.
hmm
But stewards and race direction are two different things. We often get it confused, but actually they are two different things, and the stewards are responsible for penalizing riders for actions, and the race direction is, as the name says, um, responsible for directing the race, so when to put out the red flag, when to reduce a race distance, for example, all of this stuff. So I think that the stewards are making a very good job at the minute. So I hope this lasts a lot. But I totally agree with their decision yesterday in the sprint to not penalize Aleix, because it was also, in my opinion, a racing incident and very difficult to judge this. And Aleix crashed himself, so I don't see the point of him being penalized there. With Brad today, I mean, the first one's like a 50-50 or like 51-49 for me to lead towards racing incident, because it was so difficult and it's always hard when there's a third party involved.
hmm
But I'm cool with the penalty. Like those 49% is okay enough for me to accept the penalty, and with the second one as well. So, yeah, all in all, we had a very, very good race or stretch of races regarding the stewards, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely, we have. And look, for all the crap that we give them, which they absolutely deserve, by the way, when we give it, we should give them credit when they get things right as well. So, like you said, they've had a very good stretch of races. I'm happy to see it. In some ways, I shouldn't have to be happy to see it, but you know what? Credit where it's given. They have had a very good stretch of getting things right, and hopefully, they may actually have listened to us. So, long may it continue.
Greetings to Freddie Spencer if you listen.
Hello, Freddie.
Yeah. So moving on, we teased this a lot with Aleix, and
hmm
I don't know how fucking stupid you have to be to think. I mean, Aleix had a good pace overall on the weekend. He
hmm
was good. He could have had a very good result, like Maverick obviously being the standard here. So we could assume Aleix could have fought for the victory. to go against the advice from Michelin to use the soft rear tire. I mean, he fucked up the start yesterday in the sprint. Shit happens, especially when you're on an Aprilia, and Aprilia isn't starting too well
Hmm.
in general. But what he did today was inexcusable. A man with his experience, with his potential and his pace, to opt for the rear tire, who was basically a no-go. I don't know what to say. He deserved everything that happened to him. And apparently, some Aprilia employees, I don't know who said it on the grid, to Simon Crafer, said before the race even started, this is a bad decision. So I don't even know what's going on there. I don't know why they let him even do this. But I guess when you're Aleix at Aprilia, you get like a free pass for something like this. But honestly, very, very sad that he wasted all of his potential this weekend. He should have known better. I mean, it's pretty easy. Just listen to Michelin if they say, don't fucking use this tire.
Yeah, I have to say I was absolutely dumbfounded by how stupid Aleix Espargaro was this race. I mean, when the people who supply and test and develop these tires tell you as the rider, do not use the soft rear tire for this race. It's too hot. It will not work in these conditions, and you do it anyway, then you kind of deserve everything that you get at that point. I'm not going to lie to you. And look, if it was a young, like 19, 20 year old in the class trying to prove something, I'd kind of get it. You know, you could chalk that one up to immaturity and trying to make a name for yourself. I would sort of understand that. But Aleix Espargaro is one of, if not the most experienced riders in this class. He's done this more times than anybody. And to go against the tire manufacturer and say, do you know what? It's 70 degrees outside. I'm going to go with a soft rear tire. That seems like a good idea to me. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. I don't know if he was smoking crack before the race or what the situation was. But when one of Aprilia's engineers tells Simon Crafar, this is a bad idea and we don't agree with this, then it sort of tells you all you need to know on its own in isolation. So, yeah, there's really not much more I can say. It's one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen a rider make. All he did was punish himself when he could have been challenging for a top five. And yeah, I mean that decision allowed Alex Rins to finish ahead of him on a much inferior bike. So Aleix Espargaro kind of just has to take this on the chin, realize that he was a complete idiot, and hopefully not do something that stupid again.
I checked the lap times
Mm-hmm.
and I triple checked because I couldn't believe it. The leaders were in the mid 31s
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple of laps. Aleix was in the 134s. He was fucking 3 seconds a lap slower than the leaders. I mean, Michelin says this for a reason. Don't use this tire because it's garbage over the race distance. Apparently, I don't know if you could use it in a sprint. I forgot which tires they were using. So, by the way, for the sprint, I have to apologize a little bit. On Friday, we went out and we were a little bit more drunk than planned, and we were
Go
at
on.
home at like 3 a.m. whatsoever. So no way I was waking up this early to watch the sprint. I slept until like 11 or something. And then we had some stuff to do because we were in a rush because we slept through the whole morning and I just got to watch the sprint in the evening. So that's the reason why everything was a little bit later. And another apology, I think I explained this before. We can't do our IG lives anymore because I'm actually banned on Instagram to record IG lives at the moment because, and it's the most ridiculous reason ever, there was a screenshot that Emma Oakley, she's an artist, posted because she reposted some of my memes on her story. And there was some bot who basically asked her to sell feed pics. So she took a screenshot, uploaded it to her story, and basically said, "Hey, I just reposted bad MotoGP memes once and get DM'd for selling feed pics, and I reposted this because I thought it was funny, you know, and I get flagged for sexual content, nudity, and this criteria on Instagram what you can't post.
That's what they did it for.
That's what they did, and
Oh.
I requested a review for it, but they simply don't care apparently. And now I can't post anything, or I can't go on IG Live at the minute. So yeah, tough one.
I
But I have
can't
to deal
believe
with
that.
it.
That is
I mean,
just.
it's absolutely crazy. They took down my old account once. That's why I'm bad MotoGP memes too.
Mhm.
And now this shit. But I mean, I understand. Do you know what the most ridiculous thing is? The bot apparently is fine. I talked to Emma, and we both reported the bot, and Instagram said, "Yeah, we reviewed this content. It's fine." So nice.
Yeah,
And
just
yeah, I mean, yeah, they do what they do, and I understand if you post like real fucked up shit that you get banned, but like a fucking screenshot, come on.
shout out Emma, by the way. Emma Oakley, artist. Follow her on Instagram. Her art is unbelievable. So
Yeah,
I mean, don't DM her for feet pics, for Christ's sake, whatever you do, but do follow her. Her work is amazing, so please do give her a follow, and we will try and get this sorted out for Leo as soon as we can. I'll even get in touch with Instagram if you want to explain it from my end. We'll do what we can to get the IG lives back because we know you love them, we know we love them, and yeah, we're not going to let the bots win.
yeah. I mean, it should run out. I believe it was like a 30 or 60 day ban, something like this. It will run out soon, and then we can do it again. But yeah, that's the explanation why there haven't been any IG lives for quite some time now. But back to MotoGP. I'm sorry. Back to MotoGP. Marc Marquez signed with Gresini and then bins it 2 times in the sprint and in the race. So very good ending to his career at Honda. So first of all, what do you think about the Gresini move? We talked so much about it, but now it's finally official. What do you think about it?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's obviously massive in so many different ways. It's massive for MotoGP that arguably its biggest current star is leaving one of the biggest teams. We've talked about all this so many times. I don't even know how many times we've discussed this, but he's leaving one of the biggest teams. He's going on to the best bike on the grid. Again, we've discussed this a lot of times. I think going on to a year-old Ducati is actually going to be better for Mark than if he went on to a factory bike. And the reason why I think this is because as far as the year-old bike goes, the development's done. You know, the guys have done the data. They've found out how to use this bike. They know what makes it tick. And Mark is basically going to go on to this bike. He has his brother as a teammate, which is a massive factor for him. He's going into a really good team. He's going to have a great crew chief in Frankie Carcetti, who was, I think, Joan Mir's crew chief at Suzuki. Carcetti really knows his stuff. He knows this bike. And all in all, I think for Mark, it's a fantastic move. It's the best movie. I mean, aside from Pramac, maybe it's the best movie could have made at this point. So yeah, he'll be really looking forward to 2024 at this point. As far as Honda go, I mean, I don't really know how I feel about this. I think if they get the right rider to replace him, like a Miguel Oliveira or maybe a Maverick Vinales, it could be a good move for them too. And the reason I say that is that this might finally allow them to break from the bike they've made, and it allows them to start over, start afresh, and build a proper bike with a different rider's perspective on it. So yeah, I mean, if I was Honda, I'd probably be going to Miguel Oliveira and I'd say, listen, factory bike, one of the biggest manufacturers in the world. You've got a blank slate to develop this bike the way you see fit. Are you interested? I would probably be looking at Miguel Oliveira, try and get him on board and spend all of the off season and the beginning of the new season trying to get that bike competitive. So right now it's awful for Honda. They're properly in the trenches, but it could end up being good for them depending on if they're finally smart about this or not.
Yes, regarding Mark, I think I'm a little bit more pessimistic than maybe the general public or the general MotoGP community is, because I've seen pictures like here's the 24 world champion and he will run through this field. I think first of all, it will take some time to adapt,
Mm-hmm.
especially since he's not bringing Santi Hernandez and all of the Honda crew with him. It will take some time to adapt. I'm not saying he won't win races. I'm not saying he won't be a championship contender, but I don't think he will run through everybody. And then again, over the course of the season, we don't know how much the GP24 will develop. And if Ducati is indeed capable of putting a good GP24 on the grid, which I think they are,
Mm-hmm.
then it will be very, very difficult to beat Pecco if Pecco stops crashing 5 times a season. And that's a big if. But I think we got lost a little bit in this whole in a year old Ducati is better than a factory one because of Enea Bastianini. Remember, he was on a GP21 while everybody else was on a GP22. And the GP22 had major issues. The GP22 had an engine which was like accelerating not as smoothly and the power development wasn't smooth, that
True.
even the factory boys didn't even want to use it. They used the 21 engine. So I think due to the fact that there were so many problems with the GP22 and GP21.5, however you want to call the bike Pecco and Jack Miller rode,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, but when you see like the guys this year on the GP22, who again had some problems, and the GP23 is much better than this, um, I think it could very well be over the course of the season that the GP24 just pulls away from the GP23. And let's say the GP23 is like 2, 3 tenths a lap faster, maybe, who knows, then it will be a difficult task to beat somebody like Pecco. And I think it will be a huge year also for Pecco, because like you hear all of these opinions, Pecco isn't as good as the guys from the Alien era, and he's just on the best bike. I think there's a massive lack of respect for his riding style
I agree.
and his capabilities. I think people are underestimating him. And if he can cancel out the crashing, which is a big if, and we discussed this after India, we discussed this today, like if he can get rid of this, I think he's very difficult to beat, even for Marc on a Ducati. I don't agree with Cal Caracciolo that the rest may as well not show up. I think it will take some time to get used to the Ducati and get used to the team for Marc. And I think it will be difficult to, if Ducati can bring a good GP24, it will be difficult to keep up with the development of the 24 bike over the course of the season, because usually towards the end of the season, it's much better than it was at the beginning of the season. So if Ducati can hit the ground running and if Ducati can develop the bike, then it will be difficult for Marc. And I don't think he will just run through everybody. I think it will be a very competitive championship. I think he will be better than Alex Marquez was this season. I think he will be better than DGR was this season, of course. But I don't think it will be a dominating season like 2019.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, and I certainly don't disagree with you. But the one point I will add is this to the discussion. We've always said with Marc Marquez, and because we're so used to seeing Marc Marquez in this situation, that as long as the bike is even 40-50% competitive, as long as they show up with something with two wheels and an engine, then Marc is able to wring the most out of it and make up the rest of the difference himself. And I think this is where people are getting the hype from. I don't think people are saying, oh my God, the GP23 is going to be so much better than the GP24. That's not even what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that Marc is going on to a what's going to be a very stable, good bike with an absolute treasure trove of data from every track this season. And even if the GP24 ends up being miles better than the GP23, you have a superhuman riding the bike that's inferior to the 24. So what people are wondering is this alien going to be able to make such a difference on a much better bike that he's able to smoke everybody? Now, I'm with you on this, Leo. I don't think he's going to smoke everybody straight away. I think that's being unrealistic, and I think it's being unfair on Mark. But I do think perhaps by the point of the summer break next year, coming back from that, you'll see Mark start to turn the screw in that bike, and you will see him start to make the difference on that bike as well. So either way, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, whether everybody else is right or wrong, it's going to be very exciting to see, because he's, for the first time really since, I don't know, 2015, 2016, Mark is on a bike that is probably the best one on the grid, and I'm really excited to see what he does with it.
Yes, but my point also is that it will be a season where people may be giving Pecco the respect he deserves. Because
Yeah.
what if Pecco goes out there and beats Mark Marquez? Do we say then, okay, Mark is not as good as he used to be because of all the injuries and maybe the team or whatsoever, that there are some issues with him? Or do we finally give Pecco the credit he deserves for being an absolutely outstanding rider if he can stay on the bike? But it will also be a make or break season for Mark, because after his injuries, a lot of things changed, and he has to deliver, and there won't be an excuse. Okay, this Honda is garbage. So either way, Pecco will get all of the respect he deserves, because I think that he's better than people give him credit for. And I think that for Mark, it will be also a very decisive season, because if he can't get his shit together on the Ducati, then maybe it's not the Mark Marquez era anymore. That will also be a very big question, which will be answered, and I'm very hyped for this. But in general, I'm more hyped for the 24 season now, because whenever Mark is on top or in the top three or whatsoever, shit gets exciting, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
very, very excited for this, and he could very well be the first rider to win on a satellite team in the MotoGP era. I mean, the last one was Valentino Rossi in 2001. And even back then, Rossi was getting factory material from Honda, like the NSR he rode
Hmm.
was the same NSR that the factory boys rode. So I think it will be, I mean, I'm not actually sure. Who was the last guy who won like on a satellite team with a year-old bike in the World Championship? I don't even know. I mean,
I,
it's
th-
so
I
far behind.
actually, I think I might know the answer to this, because I think I saw it on the internet a few days ago. I think the last true winner on a year-old bike was Freddie Spencer in the 1980s, back in the 500cc championship. I think it was on it wasn't a Rothman's Honda, but I think that's how long ago it was that it was on a true year-old machinery bike. Yeah, it could have been like 30 plus years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you need to ask Matt Oxley some of the stuff, because I'm not knowing the answer. But what I do know is Fabio Di Giannantonio is leaving Gresini Ducati,
Hmm.
and he's making a case for himself to be picked up by Honda. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, Honda doesn't need a rookie. A rookie will be in a wrong position at Honda. Fabio Di Giannantonio has 2 solid years on a Ducati bike and a good team and knows stuff. And I think they should put Joan Zarco into the factory team now. But I still think that Fabio Di Giannantonio will be a better choice for Honda for LCR than Ika Licona will be.
Yeah, I'm not against that at all. I think as far as Fabio Di Giannantonio goes, if I'm honest, I think he's, even though he's on arguably the best bike and one of the best teams in the grid, I think it's been so unfair on Di Giannantonio that 7 of the 8 Ducatis are ridden by absolute freaks in this grid. You know, when you've got Pecco Bagnaia, Jorge Martin, Bezzecchi, Marini, and all these other guys around you, it's a bit unfair that you're kind of the odd one out of the 8 that is struggling, and you're not struggling because you're a bad rider. Like you said, to be in the grid, you're in the 0.00001% of motorcycle riders worldwide, which is a very, very, very small group. It's just that you're around such alien riders who are so good that you stand out if you're even remotely average. So as far as the Gian Antonio goes, and he had a great weekend this weekend as well, and was very good in India too. I think he would be a very good pickup for Honda. Yeah, like you said, he's not a rookie, which they can't go back to. That would be a horrendous idea. He has 2 solid years of MotoGP experience. He's young, so you can build around him if you need to for the future. And in LCR, he gets great exposure on the bike, and you can move him up in the future. So yeah, it's kind of a an easy picture for me to paint. And for Honda, there's a very low risk, high reward aspect to that as well. So yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Honda doesn't need rookies. Honda doesn't need even championship contenders because they don't have the bike for it. They need
Exactly.
people with experience to develop the bike. They need somebody like Joan Zarco. They need somebody like Alex Rins. They need somebody, not Alex Rins, Joan Mir. I'm sorry, Alex Rins is leaving. They need somebody like Taka Nakagami, and they would be better off with Fabio Di Giannantonio than any other alternative I could think of, with one exception. If Repsol Honda is able to buy out Toprak out of his BMW contract, this would be a nice deal. Even though he has no MotoGP experience, I think Toprak is, from a marketing perspective, perfect for Honda. And I think he's a Red Bull athlete, and I think he is talented enough to go to MotoGP and be good there. And I think it would be worth the risk to put him on the Repsol Honda now. But it sounds like an unlikely scenario, so I would put Fabio Di Giannantonio on LCR. So just a quick thought about Toprak here.
Yeah, it's actually a good thought to make because I've seen a few people online make this point about buying Toprak out of his BMW contract. The only point that I'll disagree with that on is, as we all know, Toprak had a very highly publicized test on the Yamaha M1 when he was obviously with Yamaha. I can't remember if it was the Misano test or the Sepang test or whichever test it was, but he was miles, and I do mean miles, behind even Cal Crutchlow, who is obviously Yamaha's test rider. So I do have doubts about the transition to MotoGP. I don't think it would be that easy at all. And as we've already discussed, Honda can't afford to take any more risks with people who don't know what they're doing.
I mean, it would be harsh to say that Toprak doesn't know what he's doing. I think it would be harsh to judge somebody on the first test they ever had on a MotoGP bike. I believe he had like 1 or 2 tests on the Yamaha. And the Yamaha is fucking garbage. So Honda is in a position where they could use him as a marketing figure very well, develop him in a place where there's no pressure. If he doesn't win the championship, who cares? You can't be worse than John Mir was this season. It's
True.
impossible. And I mean, this would be an exciting possibility for MotoGP, but at the end of the day, it's unlikely because he has a contract. He is good in a World Superbike, and so yeah, this was like a random thought. But I don't want to dive deep into those what if scenarios. What I do want to do is give a quick shout out, like I said, to Fabio Di Giannantonio and also to the Valentino Rossi boys, Luca Marini and Marco Zecchi did a very good job over the weekend, considering that they are injured. They had a broken collarbone apiece. And Luca Marini was on pole. He was on the podium in the sprint race. Marco Bezzecchi was in the top 5 in the MotoGP race, was on the podium on the sprint race. And he is doing such a good job, and he might even have an outside chance to winning the championship. Like, what if Jorge Martin and Pecco crash into each other battling in Malaysia or like in Phillip Island or whatsoever, and he picks up the pieces? And I mean, it's not outside of the room of possibilities. So I think yeah, both of them did a very good job, A. And B, I don't think Marco Bezzecchi is completely out of this championship race.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I certainly think they deserve a hell of a lot of credit for the courage that they've shown this weekend. I mean, look, they're both dealing with pretty severe injuries. You know, a broken collarbone is. I mean, I'm fortunate enough I've never broken it, but I imagine especially if you're a motorcycle rider, it's one of the most debilitating injuries you can suffer. So to not only suffer that, but to be able to push on and get the results you've gotten is absolutely superhuman. It really is a job well done and a credit to both of them. Like I said, they didn't even have to get good results this weekend. Just the fact that they showed up and made an effort at it is absolutely commendable. But to get the results they have is outstanding. And I think the VR46 garage is probably my favorite team in MotoGP for this very reason. You know, the vibes are outrageous in that garage with Uchiho leading the team. You've got Bezzecchi, who's made such a great campaign this year. To be even with an outside shot of winning this championship at this stage of the season is a credit to that team. Marini's really, really stable. He's a great building block for that team. And yeah, all credit to them. They did really, really well this weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing them at Phillip Island too.
Yes, and also I would like to give him a shout out to Alex Rins. Alex Rins coming back from this horrible injury and finishing inside the top 10 is very, very good. And I would like to move on to Moto 2 because Pedro was doing amazing. He had an equally good start on a less horsepower machine. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was blasting through everybody. And like at the beginning, who was it? Aaron Canet had a good shot at battling with Pedro a little bit, but Pedro's pace was just incredible. He was so good, he was so fast, and he just wiped the floor with everybody. I mean, from now on, I think it's not from now on, like a couple of weeks ago, we get the sense, okay, it's Pedro's championship to lose. If Pedro doesn't break his leg again or crashes in Pecco Bagnaia, start the championship away, then I think it's game over for everybody. I I mean, I don't know what to say with Canet. Just finished second, but again, do you expect him to beat Pedro? Nobody's beating Pedro, so it is what it is. I think he will get his first win sooner than later when Pedro's not there anymore, and the competition is a little bit more normal, I would say. And yeah, I mean, what else? Moto 2 wasn't too exciting today. It was, I don't want to say it was a boring race because a lot of stuff happened, but not like MotoGP or not like Moto 3. So it was a calm race, I think.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it. Just one last note, MotoGP. Shout out to the Castrol livery on the LCR bike. That was
Yeah,
absolutely stunningly beautiful to look at. I always love seeing the Castrol livery, and shout out Alex Rins for a top 10. I am a big Alex Rins fan, so shout out LCR, shout out Alex Rins. On the Moto 2, Pedro did what Pedro always does. Absolutely untouchable again. Great race, managed the distance, managed the damage, and never really looked in any trouble. And like you said, the overall picture of the Moto 2 championship races now, it is pretty firmly Pedro's to lose. Barring another leg break, barring a crash, barring some bizarre incident, it does look like Pedro is going to win successive world championships in different classes. He's basically going to be a champ if you think about it. He's going to be a champ of Grand Prix motorcycle racing. We'll have to send him 2 toy WWE belts so he can wear those because he will have deserved them. And yeah, he will be, obviously, as we know, he'll be going up to MotoGP next year. But to go up as a champ in Moto 3 and Moto 2, that's a truly special achievement. So if he does that, he will have earned every accolade that he's gotten. As for Aaron Canet again, another second place. Aaron Canet is the Tottenham Hotspur of MotoGP. You know, he would finish third in a 2-horse race. Let's be honest here. No, but you know what? I got love for Aaron Canet. He's a great, great rider. And like you said, maybe when Pedro graduates, it will finally be Aaron Canet's time to shine. But yeah, got a good start off the line. Just faded a little bit towards the end. Obviously, Pedro was managing it so well anyway. But yeah, Aaron Canet had a great race. Credit to him. Shout out Manu Gonzalez for yet another P5. You know we love that consistency. And yeah, he actually, we were talking before we started the episode. Manu actually responded to Leo's meme earlier this morning, and he was all pissed off and upset about it. So shout out Manu Gonzalez. You know we love you. And yeah, like you said, really not a whole lot more to say about Moto 2. Really, the action at the front was great, and it kind of tapered off towards the back of the grid.
Yeah, there's one thing I would like to mention with Zonta, because Zonta has now had a couple of weekends, basically since India, where he was very, very good. He had this stretch, like we discussed previously in Silverstone in Austria, where he showed like glimpses of greatness, but now he's coming into his own, and it's phenomenal. And when you consider like the path he was on or is on, it's even more astonishing. You know, he went from junior GP directly into the world championship, and now in his second season he's getting top 10 after top 10, and he was having a very, very successful weekend in Indonesia until his crash. And apparently they had some kind of technical issue which they thought they fixed on the grid but didn't fix,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently it led to the high side. That's what he said on his Instagram. And apparently also he's not significantly hurt. I mean, it looked bad during the race, but apparently no broken bones and just a few bruises. But very, very solid weekend again from him. Unlucky to crash, but that's part of the game, I guess. And if it wasn't even his fault and it was a technical issue, then it's sad, yes, but it shouldn't take away from his confidence that he's doing very, very well at the moment. And I hope he can continue to do this in the later stages of the season. And looking at this, I'm excited to see where it leads him over the next couple of years, because we talked about this, and Zonta and I, we basically agreed with each other that it's more like a 4 or 5 year project because of his skipping of Moto 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consider him being in the top 10 now consistently, imagine he can build on this in the next season and be over a whole season consistently in the top 10, maybe get into the top 5 here and there. If he has a race where all the stars align, like India, he may be able to get a podium. And then in his fourth season in Moto 2, he maybe be a contender for podiums. That would be like the ideal path for him. But I'm very excited to see where this goes. I'm very happy for Zonta, and it's just amazing that it's so successful for him at the moment. And yeah, nothing much to add. I mean, what else to say about Moto 2? There was no real drama I can think of at the moment.
Not really, no. Honda Team Asia were kind of nowhere. I thought they'd be better, actually. They were
Yeah,
kind of in the trenches. I will say a quick word about Zonta before we move on, because like you, I'm very impressed with Zonta, and I think he's had a great development path this year. I think there's been a lot of growth, and I think there's been a lot of maturity, which is obviously great to see. And I'm glad you brought up that conversation with Zonta, because I agree with both of you. I think he is, because he obviously skipped Junior GP to go straight into the World Championship. I think he's a much longer term project that has to be nurtured and developed, instead of like a Pedro Acosta who went through the track and is now basically heading to the stratosphere. They're two very different types of rider. For Zonta, I think even the next 2 to 3, if he's on the right side of the track, maybe 3 to 4 years, I think if you give him 2 more good years of development in Moto 2, you will get a really good rider out of him. And then in the third, maybe the fourth year, you might see him even challenge for the championship as well, because I think he has that talent to push that far. So yeah, for me, I am really happy with Zonta. happy with how good of a weekend he had. He was obviously really unfortunate with the high side. I'm glad he's okay more than anything. Has there been any update about whether he's going to be fit for Phillip Island or not? I'm hoping he will be fit, but I'm just glad he was okay out of that because that was a nasty high side.
Yeah, he will be. I have no doubt in my mind. And you know, the kid is born in 2005. That means he is like 18 now. He can spend the next 5 years in Moto 2 and still is very young and could
Yeah.
maybe battle for the championship one day. Who knows? But it's just at the moment very, very nice to see a good young man like he is, a very nice human being to succeed because he absolutely deserves it. And it's very, very good, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Zonta is definitely a really good kid, and he's part of the future. And the fact that, like you said there, the fact he's only 18 is mind blowing because he's already got some great top tens this year. He's really pushed the pace. And I like you, I can really see the star that's there, and I think he really could be a star for the future. Just let him take his time, let him develop, let him keep doing his thing, and you will see the results probably in the next 2 to 3 years. He will get there.
Yeah. And I would like to talk to you about Moto 3 because I think there's not much more to cover in Moto 2, but there's a lot of shit going on in Moto 3. So, first of all, how incredibly lucky is Jaume Masia at the moment?
Oh.
I mean, he's getting everything handed to him, doesn't even have to be on a podium because everybody else takes a shit. And look at Sasaki. He fucks it up in the sighting lap, crashes. Then on the grid, he just doesn't start, and there's like a picture where everybody else is already accelerating out of this start box while he's still standing there and hasn't even moved. So he was, I believe, last in the first corner, or like second to last whatsoever, but at the back of the grid, had
Mhm.
no pace at all. I don't know if his bike was still damaged from the crash, but I mean, this one was kind of stupid. And then, what the fuck was happening with Daniel Algado? I mean, you have to be an absolute amateur to accelerate out of a corner and be faster than the guy before, who was at the time Diogo Moreira, and just say, "Oh, I will take a shortcut to overtake him." So what the fuck? I mean, it's even more ridiculous than it sounds if you watch this. Like, there's no point on overtaking him there because he wasn't pushed wide. He wasn't. There was no need to. I mean, he had a long lap penalty for it. And then afterwards, he got a second long lap penalty for exceeding track limits. What the fuck do you even? I mean, to quote Dennis Earnshaw, he's not a favorite to win the title because he's fucked in the head. And I believe today proved everything right, whatever Dennis Earnshaw meant with this, because it was. I mean, Jeremy Alcobar in India had like one of the most stupid series of events which I saw in motorcycle racing. Like he takes out half the grid in the first corner, gets a long lap, fails to comply with the long lap, gets a double long lap, and then while doing the next long lap crashes. So this was fucking stupid, but it was Jeremy Alcobar. By the way, coming back to Moto 2, I don't agree with his penalty today.
Mm.
And yeah, but whatever Daniel Algado did today was like deliberate sabotage of his own championship, you know?
Oh god, this is why I love Moto 3 as much as I do. There's always like 100 different. You know what Moto 3 is, right? And there's a really good meme that explains this. You know the meme of the dude in the restaurant with his earphones in looking at his phone and everybody else is brawling in the middle of the cafe? That's what Moto 3 is. And that was actually Jaume Masia today, just sitting on his own little bit and everybody else is just fighting in the corner. But yeah, I mean, Danny Olgado he's so stupid. I don't even know what he was thinking. He's up there and he's like, do you know what? I'm not getting past here. Screw it. We're going cross country and we're just going to cut across.
It wasn't even that he was about to get past. I mean, it was that he wanted to overtake Yoko Moira and just decided, no, fuck it, I will go off track.
It was one of the craziest but funniest things I've ever seen. And then he gets a long lap penalty for exceeding track limits as well. I mean, Danny Olgado is something else. Honest to God, he is. I mean, like I said, this is just why I love Moto 3, because these kind of incidents just sum it up so well. They really, really do. And then Jaume Masia, I think Jaume Masia must have the Jedi Force with him or something, because he doesn't even start properly. He's at the back of the grid and then he's somehow just there, and everybody else is like crashing into each other around him, and he's just completely fine. It's so weird, but Jaume Masia must have the Holy Spirit with him or something, because he should have been on the deck so many times, and yet he actually wasn't. It's so bizarre.
And coming back to Sasaki, I mean, when you want to win a world championship, how do you crash on a sighting lap?
Oh
Like,
god.
dude, what the fuck?
I
I
just
mean, I don't know what to say. Masia probably is not believing his luck at the moment. Dennis Öncü didn't do anything special today. David Alonso was solid in P2, but still isn't really there when it comes to the championship at the moment. But
David Munoz didn't kill anybody.
he almost did. Yeah, did you see the replay?
Yeah.
In I believe it was the last chicane where he and it should have been Alonso. I'm not quite sure, but he basically bumped into somebody while
Yeah.
changing
It
directions.
was David
And
Alonso.
yeah, and David Alonso was just shaking his head, this motherfucker again. But yeah, funny story, during the race, I was watching it with my girlfriend. I told her, David Munoz is quiet. It's like, the Shrek meme, like, it's quiet here. It's too
Too
quiet. Right?
quiet.
And she was like, yeah, look, there's a couple laps to go. He will find something to fuck up. And then he did. So absolutely crazy. But like for David Munoz, it was a clean race. Like, he almost killed somebody just once.
And that's
So
still clean for him.
yeah, that's very clean. But yeah, nothing beats Daniel Algado for me today. I don't know what happened.
Oh.
If his sister wouldn't let him, something was off with him today. But yeah,
Oh
it
god.
is what it is.
It is
And
what it is.
you know what was weird? I was convinced David Alonso won the race because I thought, no way in hell Diogo Moreira doesn't get a penalty for his track limit violations in the same corner where Daniel Algado took the shortcut a couple of laps ago,
Uh-huh.
because he was doing it in the last lap, and I was thinking, like, I was very, very convinced he was on the green paint.
I
But
thought he was.
yeah, but I don't know if there were any sensors who were triggered. I have no official statement there, but even he pulled up into the P2 pit box, and I believe he thought, "Oh fuck, they're gonna take it away, and they will demote me 1 point." And then the FIM dude comes to him and says, "No, you're actually first." And then everybody starts celebrating. It was a wild, wild situation there. But yeah, good for him. I mean, he had some arm pump issues. He always was very talented, but never could have never got it together. But now finally, he just showed everybody how good he is. He showed um, it was basically like his introduction to the world. Like, hey, I'm here. I'm as good as advertised. And I think he has a good future in Moto 2. Hopefully, he stays healthy. Hopefully, he's there in a good team. But he has all the potential in the world, and I'm happy for him. I met him once in Barcelona, and he's very, very nice. Funnily enough, he we met each other at Rocco's Ranch and talked a little bit. He was super friendly. And the next day, we ran into each other at the breakfast at the hotel. So yeah, he just greeted us and it was nice. We didn't talk there because I just wanted to leave him alone with his friends. And also, I wanted to be left alone because I was hungover. And yeah, I'm very happy for him. And it was kind of cute when he cried on the podium. So yeah, still wondering about the track limits. I don't know if there's an official statement out yet, but for me, it looked like he took the shortcut and therefore should have gotten a demotion. But I'm not going to argue with it because I like him. So
Yeah, yeah, we're selective in our outrage here. We don't mind.
yeah,
But yeah,
I
I on
pretend
a
like I
serious
didn't
note,
see this.
yeah, on a serious note, I will say with Diogo Moreira, I did think he got on the green, but whatever, he must have just been on the right side of it because I thought for sure the track sensors would have been set off, but hey, apparently they weren't. So yeah, Diogo Moreira, very well done. Congratulations to him. Very happy for him. Think he's really, really talented, and he's moving up to Moto 2 next year with Edeltrans, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see what he does with them. Obviously, he's replacing Joe Roberts, who's going back to ART. So I'm really excited to see what Diogo Mahara does. He is, in my opinion, he's one of the bigger kids in the class. So it'll be exciting to see what he does with a bigger Moto 2 bike. I am looking forward to seeing what he does next year because I've been very impressed with him in this class where it can be hard to stand out. So Diogo Mahara in Moto 2 with a team that's as good as Ideltrans, who obviously are a championship winning team with Enea Bastianini. It'll be good to see. I'm really looking forward to it.
yeah. I just Googled, but I don't find anything regarding a statement or whatsoever with his last lap. So I guess everything was fine. And maybe it was like a Pecco Silverstone situation where, okay, apparently he didn't trigger the sensor. So, and maybe it would have been a bigger story if it wasn't Moto 3 and it was MotoGP, you know?
Mm.
Imagine Pecco doing this in the last lap. And regarding Pecco, there's one thing I forgot. I'm glad that Ducati isn't interfering with the championship fight. Like,
Yes.
yeah, Bastianini in the sprint race couldn't have got the mapping 8, but he didn't. So I'm very happy with this. And also, I don't think there was anything else what Ducati intervened with or something. So we talked about this last time that I was afraid that Ducati might be having team orders that not that Jorge Martin would do anything Ducati tells him, but like the other ones, you know, that like in Enea Bastianini would give a place to Pecco and all of this stuff. And I don't want this in the championship fight. So fair play to Ducati and good for the championship. So I just wanted to mention this. And to Moto 3, like Ana Carrasco's crash was
Oh,
very, very bad. And it looked weird because she got some kind of a high side from the front. And I mean, it was just weird, but it looked also bad the way she landed on her neck. She appears to be fine, but still a scary crash. I was worried a little bit when I saw this. So yeah, and also the last thing I would like to discuss is the whole Adrian Fernandez and Tatsuki Suzuki Leopard situation because he Tatsuki Suzuki got replaced with Adrian Fernandez at Leopard because Suzuki wasn't giving him the results or giving them the results they expected from him, which is, in my opinion, not very, very nice to throw somebody out. Um, before their contract ended, especially when the season isn't even over. But who knows what happened there? I believe Tatsuki Suzuki already signed a contract for a team next season, if I remember correctly, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe you could Google this while I'll
Yes, of course,
elaborate.
I'll have a look.
And what annoys me so much is that they replace him with Adrian Fernandez out of all people. Like, you fire somebody for bad results, and if you do like the speed up thing and replace them with Alonso Lopez, then okay, I kind of get it. Alonso Lopez is a very, very talented rider. He got multiple wins, but Adrian Fernandez is not any good. We saw him in Moto3. He was fired for not being a good human being because apparently he was a pain in the ass to deal with, and second, he wasn't having any results. So to replace Suzuki with him is a bit odd. I am very convinced that something happened behind the scenes because I just can't get my head around it. And the other thing is, you have Angel Piqueras who's going to race for you next season. And he is done with his Red Bull Rookies Cup. He's done with his Junior GP. Why don't you replace Suzuki with him? I don't know if there's any rule what prevents them because they introduced this 18-year-old rule in Moto 3 that you have to have a
Hmm.
minimum age of 18 years. But very, very strange that it's Adrian Fernandez. And it's a little bit like with Borja Gomez in Moto 2, with Sean Dillon Kelly, like, or even Romano Fenati. Like, you signed a contract with somebody. What's the point of having contracts if you just fire people left and right if half a season it doesn't go well? So I would like to see in the MotoGP world that contracts are worth more than the paper they're written on.
Yeah, just an update on what you're saying about Tatsuti Suzuki. You are right. He's been announced by the Liqua Moly Husqvarna team for next year,
Oh,
so
I see.
that's where he's going. It's not clear if the change is definitive until the end of the season, but like you said, Adrian Fernandez is replacing Suzuki at least for 2024. Yeah, this is a good point that we talk about here, and it's something that I have a real issue with, especially in light of Sean Dillon Kelly and how he's been treated by the American racing team. You know, I get that in the world of sports, in all different kinds of sports, whether it's football, MotoGP, whatever sport you can name, that contracts are flexible and they can be sort of bent here and there to serve different interests and work in different ways. But I think Simon Patterson actually said that he was talking to somebody involved in Aprilia. And I think it's in relation to the Oliveira and Vinales talk. And he said that basically MotoGP contracts aren't worth wiping your behind with, or words to that effect. And I think that's a real problem because I don't like this immediacy and this chopping and changing by teams. If a rider has a run of 3 or 4 bad races, that's it, you're out in your ass. I don't like that. That just doesn't seem right to me. Like Tatsuti Suzuki's the latest person to be involved with that. Sean Dillon Kelly, Borja Gomez, like you said already. And I don't know how you implement that change. I think Maddie Patterson actually talked about this in your episode with her, but there has to be some kind of change implemented where contracts are honored a lot more than they are. Because a lot of riders, you don't even have to be Spanish or Italian. Riders are basically competing in these championships with a lot of risk and a real lack of security. And these teams, a lot of the talent now is just disposable talent, and it shouldn't be that way. And I would like to see some kind of change where teams aren't able to just cast people aside, and they have to at least honor contracts until the end of the season. So that's where I stand on it. I don't know how we implement this change, but it's a change that we should try and make.
I think it's pretty easy. If you break a contract, you should be fined.
Or
And
pay
in
the
my
rider.
at least yes, but still be fined.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
in my opinion, the Adrian Fernandez thing has to have something to do with money,
Oh yeah.
because now, end of the episode, let's get into conspiracy theories. Have anybody, please message me, has anybody ever seen a Leopard energy drink being sold?
I haven't.
I haven't either. And I talked with people in the paddock, like Italian people, who tell me I haven't seen them. There are nobody, and people who travel the world, and nobody has ever seen, or at least nobody I've ever talked to, nobody has ever seen a Leopard energy drink. So it kind of looks a little bit suspicious regarding Leopard in general. And who knows what's behind there? Who knows what's the reason for this? But maybe it's just some money laundering thing, like crypto
Pyramid
data.
scheme.
Yeah, like crypto data. Or remember this partnership MotoGP had with the cashback world thing?
Oh yeah.
Also, total pyramid scheme is very, very bad. Somebody from my university was involved with this and tried to convince me as well, but I didn't do it. And then another dude came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be part of my team? I have something really exciting." So I asked him, "Hey, is this cashback thing?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Fuck this, yeah, boy, stop it. It's just stupid. You're just wasting your money." And I haven't talked to him about it. I will. But I haven't heard anything from him about this ever again. So basically, he probably paid somebody a lot of money and never got the rewards from it. So my conspiracy theory is that Leopard is down bad with money, and Adrian Fernandez, being Adrian Fernandez, he brings some sponsorship money with him, which allows Leopard to pay their bills. And they obviously can't get rid of Jaume Masia, and he's leading the championship. He's doing everything right at the moment. So I think that, as always, it has to do something with money. And my whole solution for this would be that I would, as Dorna, want to be part of a contract. You know, that you have a contract between a rider and a team. And basically, Dorna's role in this one was that they overview everything if everything is played by the rules. And then, for example, if you give teams freedom to sign and who not to sign, then just be there when it comes to signing somebody, and that everything is done the right way, and you give your okay. But then again, if a contract is as somebody is released from their contract, that it can't happen without Dorna's permission, and that they overview the process as well. I don't want to get Dorna involved with who signs who. That's the business of the riders and the teams. But I would like to have somebody who overviews the whole situation, who says, "Hey, come on, you can't fire Sean Dillon Kelly mid-season and replace him with Marcos Ramirez just because Marcos Ramirez brings in a couple of 100,000 in sponsorship money." And that's not how this game is played. And this would protect the riders, in my opinion. And I would be in favor of a riders union who takes care of this stuff, that all of the riders are involved there and that they have some rights. Hey, if you release us from this contract, you have to pay us, you have to pay a fine or whatsoever, that there's somebody overviewing this, because right now is absolute madness. Teams are doing whatever the fuck they want. They're taking advantage of young men trying to race in motorcycle racing and doing something in GP. And that's like the bad part about my journey. I stepped into the whole MotoGP world as a fan, and I'm still a fan of it because I just love racing. But to hear and see all the dirty stuff that goes on behind is not always nice. So I would like to have in one sense, I would like to have this naive view about the glorious MotoGP world back. On the other hand, I like that I can now look behind the scenes and talk to you and talk to everybody else about this bullshit which is going on. And I like to use my platform to at least tell the truth. You know, I won't be able to change anything about it, but I'm able to put my head on the pillow at the end of the day and be in peace with myself because I told the truth, you know? That's like important to me. And maybe something will change if enough people tell the truth, and maybe something can happen in the future. But right now, motorsport is just about money. It's a very, very dirty business. And I hope that there's some sort. I don't know if the whole Dorna part of the contract proposal would even work or whatsoever, because Dorna in itself is fucking corrupt. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe a riders' union being part of the contract. Who knows? And or the rider being represented by the riders' union and then is able to sign contracts and are protected by a riders' union organization, which also could work. I don't know, but something which would protect the riders a little bit from teams and other people coming in and saying, "Hey, I will pay you this amount of money," and then all of a sudden you get kicked out. And yeah, that's not the way to do business. And that's also something which isn't even looked at enough because it's Moto 3 and Moto 2. You don't see this shit happening in MotoGP, you know? Like Maverick Vinales, but this thing was more or less consensual from both sides because he didn't even want to ride for Yamaha anymore. He had this Aprilia scene lined up, so they could probably agree on releasing him from his Yamaha contract. But at the end of the day, it's just a shit show in the lower classes. What the fuck? That's my bell. But
No, do
I
you want to
haven't.
take that?
No, 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 no. I haven't ordered anything. I don't expect somebody to. Yeah, nobody.
That's
Nobody
Dorna
even.
here to do a hit job on you.
Yeah, probably. No, man. Sometimes people from the delivery guys from the post office,
Mhm.
they ring at other people's doors to to give somebody the packages, and I could do it, but not when I'm recording a podcast now. And also, some people who just walk in the street, it's a bigger city. Maybe they just want to annoy me. So at the beginning, I always got up and there's like this big phone at the bell. So
Mhm.
I asked hello, and nobody answered. And I just hear the door because apparently they run by everybody else too to just get into the house or whatsoever. It could also be like a trick to get into the house and steal a bicycle or something like this. And
Mhm.
if I know I'm not expecting anything, I just won't open it.
Fair.
And like my, how do you call the people who rent out a flat? Is it a landlord?
Landlords.
Yeah, they have my phone number, and if they're super chill, and if they need anything, then they will text me beforehand. So
Makes sense. Makes
makes
sense,
sense,
yeah.
yeah. So I had it when I was in bed, trying to sleep, that somebody rang the bell. I was like, "Come on, you motherfucker!" Where I know I'm not expecting anything, and yeah. So the thing is that also today is Sunday, so nobody from the post office will be working. So yeah, it's somebody who just wants to get into the house, and I'm not interrupting the podcast for it. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, it's a dirty business, it's a dirty world, and I hope that there's some kind of solution to protect the rider from from getting taken advantage of, and hopefully there is something maybe with the riders union or whatsoever. I'm sorry if you hear the bell.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, you're right. It's unfortunate that our sport is a really dirty business, and it's not like F1, for example, necessarily, where there is a lot more prestige to it. You could make that argument. In the lower classes of MotoGP and motorcycle racing, there are really underhanded teams involved, and even the organization itself, like you said, is rotten. We've seen it with the Kazakhstan track thing at the beginning of the season. We've seen it with contracts being allocated and people being given jobs and all this kind of thing. So it doesn't surprise me, but that doesn't mean we should be okay with it either. It doesn't mean we should just accept it as the norm just because it's happening. And it's why I love being involved on this platform and talking to you and contributing to this discussion, because we're on the side of the riders at the end of the day. The riders are just good people, ordinary people who get to live their dream, and we get to see them live their dream and cover it and report it and analyze it. And it's tough when you see them getting taken advantage of and they don't deserve it, just because of more money or because somebody is more media friendly or who might bring in more sponsorship for a team. You know, the Sean Dillon Kelly thing left a massively sour taste in my mouth about John Hopkins and ART, because I thought they were better than that, and obviously they are not. In Moto 3, we see it all the time. We've seen it with Tatsuki Suzuki, who's obviously, like you said, getting thrown out because Adrian Fernandez brings in something more than Suzuki does, even though Suzuki's been doing really well with Leopard. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But what we have to try and do is help the riders organize and know that we're behind them. We need a riders union with lawyers involved who can protect these riders and who can get break clauses inserted in these contracts that protect employment law, that protect contract law, and protect these riders from getting taken advantage of. I do think as well a big problem that I have is with them, a bit like in MMA actually, Leo, and you'll understand this, with people like Ali Abdelaziz, for example, but the equivalent in Moto 3 and Moto 2. There are a lot of people there who are self-serving their own interests. There are vested interests, and there are people who are not acting in the best interests of the riders when they should be. And we need to go through this with a fine-tooth comb and sweep all the dirt out finally and get this sorted, because this kind of stuff, it's not right that it's allowed to continue, and as fans we can do something about it. So we just have to hope that it changes one day and that we do everything we can to shine a light on it.
I would like to add something to the conspiracy theory of Tatsuki Suzuki,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of funny because I just looked at his results during the season and he was crashing a lot. And he won in Argentina. He had a couple of top 10 finish, I believe 2 or 3 or whatsoever, and then a couple of point finish, but the majority of the races he crashed. What if Leopard kicked him out because he was inflicting too much crash damage and it was too expensive for the team to pay for all the broken parts? So they bring in Adrian Fernandez, who in his first race crashes.
It would be funny.
It would be funny.
Yeah, it would be very, very funny, and it would be poetic justice in a way as well. You know, you get rid of a rider that does crash a lot, and then the first race, the other rider crashes. So yeah, it would be it would be really humorous, I have to say.
The last thing I would like to ask is before we wrap this thing up, I'm in a different flat now, different city, and I would like to hear the input from everybody who is listening and watching. For example, on camera angle, do you like the background? Do you like, for example, this background to my right hand side more? Or do you prefer a white background but maybe some pictures hung there? Is the sound quality okay? I try to mute myself as much as possible when Keelan is talking because there's a train driving past my apartment pretty frequently. And, did you even hear this when I was talking and the train was passing? Something like this I would be interested in, how you perceive those things. I thought about something with the background. We discussed this before, and also the sound quality. I hope it was good for you, Keelan. But yeah, this is something I would like to know and something I would like to improve. If there's any issue, and that's not only for today. That's in general, but especially since I got a new setup now, I would like to. I would like to hear your opinion on this. And there's another thing, the camera is in this direction now, and the laptop is there. So I'm more or less looking at Keelan the entire time. And I'm trying to look into the camera as much as it's possible, but it's kind of weird to look into my phone and see in the corner of my eye Keelan. So naturally, you just want to talk to a human. Is this some kind of annoying to have me not looking into the camera? Or is it maybe good? This is something I can't really know just by myself. So maybe if it's annoying, maybe we can solve the issue by placing the camera somewhere else. And if it's good, I will learn something for the future. And I would like to hear some feedback if there's anything you want me to change or something. If you watch on Spotify, you can always DM me on Instagram, and you can DM Keelin on Instagram, and we will find a solution for it. And on YouTube, you can just hit it into the comments or DM me as well on Instagram. I usually respond to most of my DMs. Um, so yeah, thank you very much, Keelan. Thank you everybody for joining us. And now I have like Sunday evening to do something for university tomorrow, because I have a project tomorrow, which was kind of weird. The first um, what do you call it? Wait a second, I will Google it.
How was
Um,
your first week at uni, by the way?
it was nice. Wait a second, I will Google. It was nice because I met a lot of new people,
Mm-hmm.
and coming to a city alone, where you not where you don't know anybody, and a lecture. That's the word. The first lecture, the professor didn't come because he was busy. So he just said, "Hey, here's your homework, and you have to present it next week," without ever having one lecture, which was weird. But the first week in university was nice. Met a couple of new people. Found myself some nice places here to go shopping, to take a drink afterwards, and it was nice. And also the university, the structure they have, I like, because they have a lot of projects during the semester and not too many exams at the end. So it takes a little bit of the stress from the end of the semester, and more or less you have it during the semester, which is, in my opinion, a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
So I like this one, and the people I've met is very nice, and I enjoy being in Berlin. It's such a fucking big city. Where I'm from. I'm from a small village, and we have like Cologne next to us, like 30 minutes away, and there are living 1 million people in Cologne, and it's a big city, but you know where you are, and you kind of always have an idea. But Berlin is so fucking big. It's 3 times as big, and the space the city occupies, it's crazy. You can drive an hour and you're still in the city. So yeah, it's wild, but I enjoy it so far, and I'm happy that I made the decision, and I'm excited to see what the next 2 years bring to me. And
Yeah.
then my master's degree, and who knows what's happening next.
And also, guys, on top of that Berlin news, some good news from my end as well. I will be coming to Berlin. We'll be doing a very special end of season in person podcast too. So, really excited to be coming over to Berlin. Have I ever been to Berlin? No, I haven't. I've been to Munich, but I've never been to Berlin. So I'm really excited to come over and see it. Really excited to do an in person podcast as well. And yeah, hopefully we'll be doing a lot more in person content as well. For the channel.
Yeah, get yourself a job here.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I got an EU passport. I can move over and get a job as long as I can find something English speaking. We'll make it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, learning German is a pain in the ass. I'm happy that I didn't have to do this.
Yo,
Or like
God.
when I did it, I was like 2 years old, so it was nice. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Thank you everybody for listening, and goodbye.
Bye, everybody.